Welcome to Start from the Universe On Call. I am Paul Franz, owner of Franz Games. I run SFU Online, FedCom Online, and Starfleet Warlord. Just a reminder how to join us for a talkcast every Thursday starting at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You can either call on the phone, just dial 605-562-0444. Just follow the directions. Call ID is 17702. Or you can participate on the web. Just go to the TalkShoe website at www.talkshoe.com and search for call ID 17702. Or you can search for SFU On Call or Starfleet Universe On Call. You will find us all there on TalkShoe. Now, if you want the best streaming experience, you want to go to Twitch. That's right. Twitch.tv/SFU On Call is the URL you want to visit, because that's where you will find me. And you'll get to see my wonderful face, hear my melodious voice, and continue on and have a wonderful day after that. Come on, after that, how can you not? And if, of course, you need to contact me for any reason, my email address is sfuoncall@gmail.com. That's sfuoncall@gmail.com. Also, if you want to, you can follow me on Twitter. My Twitter account is sfuoncall. And if you will follow my personal account, that's also Paul Franz. It's PULFRANZ. There's no T in that. And also Franz Games, which is my business account. So FRANZGAMES. And of course, a lovely talkcast, Get Standard podcast, available on iTunes and various other feeds around the net. Some quick news from A to B this week. And that is Shapeways has 2 new materials to the fine detailed plastic family. One is a gray fine detailed plastic, opaque material that shows exceptional contrast and detail. And also they have the clear ultra fine detailed plastic that has improved clarity and look. So it's kind of, the whole idea is, I know some people use that to represent a cloaked ship, which is kind of cool. Now, the problem is Shapeways did play with the pricing of these products, and because of that, Gene's going to have to spend way too much time going over all 2,500 items on the Shapeways store and possibly adjusting pricing accordingly to be more consistent and whatever, because that's kind of important. Now, of course, AD has lots of free stuff. You want to go to starfleetgames.com. You'll find all kinds of free stuff, especially a good place to go actually is the Master Index. You'll find all kinds of stuff available on the website, or possibly even just a link to other websites. For example, SFU Online. Moving on, went forward to the SFU Online tournament. The Sapphire Star 13 tournament it started last week, actually a couple weeks ago, I think at this point. And the 5 games have been completed out of the 8, so we're progressing quite well. And of course, bad news, I lost against the Win Oxbox, and you will be listening to how badly I did just later on this podcast / YouTube video. Moving on to the library report, there's not much going on there. Because that's SFB Online, SFB, nothing going on there. And FedCom library, nothing added. There was some that was submitted. I have not gotten around to, because I spent the whole weekend away, spending way too many days, going to bed late and getting up early, extra early. So with that is the news for this week. Hey, listening, only one of Paul Franz welcoming you to the Starfleet Universe On Call. And tonight, well, we've got Doug. Hey, Doug, how you doing, man?
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
I'm here.
Good. And of course, Jeff. How you doing, Jeff?
Good evening, everyone.
Staying safe out there?
Yeah. Taking an odd route because of weather and mountain passes. I'm in Montana this time around.
Oh, okay.
That sounds pretty.
Yep.
It is.
Eh.
Went past the little Bighorn battlefield site earlier.
Oh, cool. Okay. Well, anyway.
Yeah, and among other things, stuff. I was thinking about running a little Bighorn game someday, but oh well, go on.
Mhm. Oh, gee.
Special scenario for gamers. Like, you know, limited number of guys in the Custer side and unlimited number of Indian reinforcements coming in until like the end, shall we say? They were like vastly outnumbered.
That sounds a lot like the FASA Star Trek Kobayashi Maru scenario.
Yeah.
Well, let's put it this way: hosed. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the no win.
Yep.
Yeah, it's definitely no win scenario. The key to the way I see it is your way to quote unquote win is to survive the most turns. It's a combination between people. Can you last 5 turns or 10 turns?
Yeah. Well, just to give them a quick plug, if you check out the Little Wars TV guys, they did an Alamo scenario where this guy had actually made the Alamo and he gave up. He had, it looks like 177 scale miniatures. Remember the old Airfix miniatures way back in the day?
Mm-hmm.
And it looked like he basically he built a scale model of the Alamo based off of the John Wayne movie. You know, that major influence. And then the scenario was there's just waves of Mexicans because there's like 6,000 of those guys to like the 100 odd whatever amount of guys there were in the Alamo. And it wasn't a matter of you're going to win or lose. It was a matter of how long can you survive, how much damage do you inflict to the enemy as your victory conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And the Alamo guys thought that they lost because the guy refereeing the game didn't tell anybody ahead of time what the victory conditions actually were. It's just, here you go, here's the scenario. Pew pew time.
Well, that to me makes perfect sense.
How did
How did what? I'm sorry, you trailed off.
Well, now that you have the Kazini out of your face, how did it go with the drones in your face?
Okay.
Poorly.
Well, I definitely I lost, and that was definitely the end. And for Jeff, I think yours was a worse end than mine.
Oh, I knew mine was over long before the actual end. I when I did the math and realized I had missed my last opportunity to MD Cell and Papa Weasel, there was just okay. Well, let's just let Peter have his big boom. And I was actually surprised. I still had a ship left after all the drones hit.
Wow.
I ate two standards. I ate 2 standards on a weak shield, and then I ate 2 standards and 2 4s on a intact shield, and I ended up, oh gosh, after the disruptors and everything else, it was somewhere in the order of 140 hits on different shields, and I think when I pulled it up, I think I didn't have a single excess damage box ticked. I had 1 control space. I had a couple of other miscellaneous. I think I had a transporter left. But everything else was a sea of red. I had 0 power available, so I was like, okay, everybody, break out the life support supplies. Oh well.
Yeah.
Had I known that I would have survived the onslaught with a control box, I wouldn't have fired drones at drones, and that didn't work out so well for me anyway. I'd have fired my 2 remaining 4s and my 2 remaining suicide shuttles at Peter, at least made him pay for it.
Right. Understood. Yeah, for me.
I at least can say I drew blood. I can at least say that. I
Uh,
brought down his number one. So there is that.
mm-hmm. Oh, understood. And I know how that is. I drew first blood in mine, which was nice. I lost in the long term. Blood, but I did get first blood. Oh, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
when we last left our Avengers or adventurers, I think that's a better way of putting it. They were being chased by Win Oxbox with Hellbores and plenty of drones. And actually, I survived longer than I would have if I would not have headed, because of I got into a position which was really bad, where I was off his shield number 6, but if I only short of a head, the only thing I could do is go directly forward. So all he had to do at that point is go directly, I think, forward, and we'd be at range 2. It's like, no, that's not a good thing.
No.
Nope, not at all. Now, a short version of what happened is basically he kept on chasing me. He would fire one hellbore per turn. And with that, he just pink, take down some more weapons. Pink, take down some more weapons. Pink, take down some more weapons. To the point where, okay, he's taken down all my shield crackers, or web breakers. He's taken away half my phasers, and he's taken down half my PCs. So I got 2 PCs and like 4 phaser 1s, and that's about it. Actually, I think it was 4 phaser 1s. Maybe 5. No, it was 5. I had 5 phaser 1s. After that, I still had plenty of power, but I'm looking at this. Okay, I'm going to defeat this guy with 2 particle cannons and 5 phaser 1s. No. So at that point, I conceded. That's because of it was a no-win situation. No win. Could I have won this game? I mean, from the beginning, I'm talking about. I don't think so. I'm not sure what I could have done differently to win it. Now, here's the one thing. Okay, a couple of things that got answered. On turn number 1, for those of you who are dialing in for the second podcast in a row, you know about the position where I basically was able to. He did something really whacked, and he went for a corner dodge, offside corner dodge. So he's coming basically directly towards me. Coming towards me when it comes to hex rows, and they launches these drones to make a drone cloud. Now, I come to find out from him, the reason why he did this was that he wanted to get the drones in front of him. It's like, okay. Now, here's the thing that I found just a slight bit funny. He said that he was expecting me to hit his shield number 1. Now, here's the thing. He's launching it so that the drones are going to be off his shield number 2. Fine.
Right.
And so when he turns in, the drones are going to be off his shield number 2. On that side of the ship. And he expected me to be off of shield number 1. Now, that might have been the case if I wouldn't have been going as fast as I went. So that's possible. But, the thing is, to me, what was funny was that he said that, and he was expecting, because the drones were off shield number 6, he was figuring I was going to attack shield number 1, and it's like, no. Why in God's green earth would I do that? Because of, what that means, if you think positionally speaking, he's coming towards me. So if my only way of attacking him is going to be going after shield number 1 and then turning towards the short corner. It's like, are you nuts? I'm not going to go towards the short corner and have less room to run away from. Really? I mean, really. So, I told him, I told him that's why I was off shield number 6. Well, come to find out, shield number 1 was the brick. I just happened to hit the non-brick, and that's why I got the internals. Now, the next time I got around to firing on, to say the very least, okay, number 1, my rolls sucked dirt. Of all of my particle cannons, I hit with maybe 50%.
Well, that's your own fault, Paul. You wrote the software. You tell me you didn't write it in so that when it detected your username, you had an invisible -2 electronic warfare shift?
See, that's the thing. That's the kind of thinking that's like, if I start, here's the thing, and this is the God honest truth, that I'm always fearful that someone's going to accuse me of that. And I have no way to prove that I didn't do it. The only thing I can get close of is that you can look, because if I'm rolling really well, if I've really done a good job, I'm rolling well, and people can possibly question whether I modified the die roll so they would roll better for me than anybody else, because I actually developed the program.
Well, if I remember correctly, you could plug in and it's some kind of external die roller.
Yep.
So it's entirely possible that someone else could do the same thing for themselves. So it's not like it's really all that big a deal. And if winning Starfleet Battle online games means so much to you that you're willing to cheat, what's the victory worth?
Yeah. Agreed. But I hit
with
the
refrigerator and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yep.
Yeah.
I hit with 2 out of 5 web breakers.
Wow.
Yeah. And I also hit with only, 3 of 6 particle cannons, really poor. I mean, even when I got better, better to hit, like 1 to 4, I still hit with only 1 out of 2.
Yeah.
So, and of course the big issue for me was that I didn't have much. I need more power. At least that's where I see it. So my next time I come around, actually I hit his brick. Because actually I hit him.
You got it right this time.
No, I got to hit his non-brick for one time, but the problem was I couldn't. That was with phasers. But the next time it came around, it's kind of obvious that shield. So I got like half his shield number 6 is gone. That's where he put his brick for when I actually had enough firepower to actually hurt him. Now, when it comes to the drone situation was kind of interesting in that we're on turn number 4. I'm running away from the drones that were from turn number 1. I actually run them all out. And after I run them all out, then I turn towards him. I turn, because I figure, okay, what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to come in and I'm just going to pray that I can get through all the drones. Phaser 1 here, bing. Phaser 1 here, bing. Phaser 1 here. Just hope that there's no type 1. Well, the funny part was that I actually got 3 points a day. I rolled a 6 for one of them at range 2. And it survived. So big surprise. But that's the one that turned out to be a 2-space drone.
Oops.
Well, fortunately,
Ouch.
for the fortunate part about that one is that I was it was at range 2. Neither of us neither the drones nor I was moving, so I was able to fire phaser 3 at range 2 and knock it down and kill it. So that one never hit me. But I was able to basically to wipe out that wave of drones, with my phasers, and I fired the shield crackers and the particle cannons at him, and I think I'm just thinking about the last turn, whether I fired phasers at him or not. I think I did. Yeah, I fired 4 phaser 1s at him, and but I didn't. Of course, unfortunately, I hit the brick, so no damage there. And he keeps on beating on me, each turn, to the point where, as I said, I have my particle cannons available and only had 5 out of the original. Okay, 5 out of the original. I'm thinking about this again. 12 phasers. Yeah, because I got 4 phaser 3s and 8 phaser 1s. So 12 phasers. So it's like, okay, most of my battery was gone by that time. So I figured I'm toast. And I conceded at that point. Then John and I had a quick discussion about whether what I thought could, did I think that the Seltorian was weak? Because it never seems to win. Well, I think part of that is I think I'm the only person playing the Seltorian these days. So,
well, there was some mention that the Seltorians at one point had 10 phaser 1s on the tournament boat.
And I played, yeah, and I played against it too. I was playing. I remember that year. I don't remember what year it was, but I remember it was a long time ago where we didn't have SFU Online. If you played online, it was called Play by Email.
Oh,
and
Lord.
yeah, and
Yes, I remember participating in that.
Yep, and I was facing a Seltorian with the 10 phasers against my Andromedan. This is before they nerfed the Andromedan. This is before they nerfed it. And he just wailed on me. I don't think he charged his particle cannons. I think he has particle cannons charged for the first go around, but after that he never charged them again. So it's
Well,
like,
when you got 10 phaser 1s, why bother? You phaser boat.
exactly.
You get in behind him.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, it was a nutty affair. Now, brings up the question, which is, the 2 questions. One, is the Seltorian a weak ship? And if it is a weak ship, it should be upgraded. And if she upgraded, how? Now,
I'm going to posit the theory that it's not a weak ship, but it's a weak empire. They, aside from a heavy phaser layout, their heavy weapons don't typically produce a lot of crunch power, except in some very narrow cases. They're really good against the Tholians and mediocre against anybody else.
yeah,
Oh, I got something to say about this.
okay.
Fine.
Oh, go ahead, though. Go ahead.
Well, basically, it comes down to a matter of design, game design, and one of the issues that I have with this is that every faction is shoehorned into the tournament play, and the problem is you have a ton of different play styles and equipment setup that doesn't work against each other, just
Right.
flat out. And it took them decades to get to buff out a lot of the problems that they had with the initial tournament play. Don't even want to go into all that, but some things just don't work well against others in the tournament play, and there's so many different factors that maybe that's a huge part of the issue. The other thing is it could be a matter of the ship design that they need to pull for the actual play. I mean, perhaps they could go to something that's not that particular ship, that's like a war cruiser design, something like they did with the Lyrans, where they took the LDR as a different Lyran faction. But the problem with it is that there's always going to be something that you stack up against that you're weak against in certain tactics. And it could also just be an issue of he chose the right tactics in this game. And maybe you're just not playing that often enough to get all the subtleties down in it. Because that's a huge problem with SFB. If you're not playing it a lot, there's a ton of little subtle things that you can miss, and the little subtle things, especially in a tournament boxed arena, are the things that will cost you that particular match. So
Right.
Kind of my 4 cents on that. It could come down to just maybe more experience and more practice games against that particular thing, and you might have a totally different way of approaching the match. Or it could just be that against XYZ, this ship is massively disadvantaged. Which brings me to the third thing that I was thinking of for 6 cents on the deal is has anybody ever suggested, and I forget because it's been a long time since I posted on the SFB boards, has anybody ever suggested a tournament setup where instead of just picking one race to run, you pick, one with an alternative, 2 or 3 ships in a row, like ABC. A is the alpha, that's your primary ship you're going to play. But if A as an alpha is historically, severely disadvantaged against the opponent, you end up going to B.
That's ripe for player abuse.
And not just that. Here's the thing that I see with that. Okay, let's see. Well, it's never been proposed. That I know. But number 2, I think the more important thing is that you can't, given that scenario where you have 3 ships apiece, when you define, I'm assuming the whole idea is that, okay, I choose one ship, your opponent chooses one ship, and then you see if the matchup is, you know, a disadvantage to one person or not another, and then the person who's disadvantaged can choose a different ship. And the question is,
Well,
About the about the only way I can think of this would work without without a lot of issues is if when you're setting the tree up, when the judge is setting the tree up, he goes down. Okay, um, uh, John Q. Gorn is facing is facing this other race. This other race is disadvantaged against the Gorn, so he goes to their alternate, and then their alternate. And in which case, then you turn around and then you release, and you keep the surprise up of who you're, of what's going on. You show up, and you're playing what the system says you're playing, but at the same time, who bumps first? Which player gets bumped from their primary to their secondary first? There's all this nuance in there, and if you leave it up to player choice, it's going to come down to people trying their best to make cases that since the Orion took the drone package, you really need you're going to be disadvantaged, and so you need to take this other race selection. Or since the Orion took the plasma package, you need to go with the phaser heavy pack. You need to go with this other phaser heavy Empire design, and things like that. All these sorts of things that are basically locked out of the mind game of the tournament as it is now. It's an interesting idea. I just don't really see how it could be made workable without um, injecting more opportunities for player abuse.
right, I agree.
well, here's the when I initially said the player chooses A, B, C, I didn't mean that they get the choice at the point of the match. They get the choice at the beginning of the tournament. So, and there's an extra little thing to this. So, in effect, when you're set up in a tree, or if you're in a round robin kind of thing, and I was thinking more in the round robin, like Swiss format, the patrol style thing, where pick your three ships, then you're not going to choose B or C. It goes to B. And if B is massively advantaged against the other player goes to his B. Possibly they might end up going to C on one of the players. And that could be a judge's call. But the other thing is, the reason I think this could be viable is that you have this potential, and I don't know if anybody's compiled it, but I'm sure that there are records of it from different tournaments, different online tournaments. You could have a potentially massive database of, here's all the matches that have been played over the last 20 years. You know, here's how many times Orion wins against Fed. And if that is, you know, Orion wins 9 out of 10 times, then you could say that that ship is heavily advantaged against the Fed player. The Fed player would then go to his B choice against somebody whose primary is an Orion.
Now,
so that's
as somebody who's got some experience with databases, one of the issues you're going to run into really quickly is that historical data only means things when none of the underlying data points change. And we know that a lot of changes have been made in tuning in the tournament ships that we have now. So it's like, okay, is it the 1999 Orion, or is it the 2012 Orion, or is it the 2023 Orion?
Right.
Against which version of the Fed?
That's something that could be sifted through when you build the database for the advantage chart. I mean, I wouldn't say like use the Andromedan as an example for that too, for when they got nerfed. You know, I mean, those are just things that you would have to take into advantage, whoever wants to set up or would be willing to take the task of setting up that kind of an information structure.
Having played the tournament Orion recently, yeah, you're right. They got nerfed so hard. With only 3 batteries, they can only really flip their after panels. Otherwise, they're destined to eat a lot of power overload internals. It would be almost equitable if a proposal could be floated so that the the forward panels on the Andromedan, as currently presented, are considered two different systems for purpose of reducing to between standard and reinforced levels for the purpose of shifting points around. Um, Otherwise, you're in a position where if you even wanted to try to flip your panels with your and you've even with completely empty batteries, um, what is it? You lose 40 points if you had full panels minus whatever degradation. So 40 points into 15 points of battery. Yeah, the Andromeda is never going to eat 20 plus internals just to manage power.
You can't. You're not allowed to.
You can't. No.
By rules, you cannot reduce the amounts of either turn off panel or reduce from reinforce to standard if it causes you internals. That's by definition. That's the rule. Now, when it comes to the Andromedan, I can speak very clearly on the Andromedan given my experience. Now, yes, the current one is kind of nerfed with the 3 batteries. I'm happy that we're back to the 2 TR heavies because damn, we needed that. To me,
Yes.
that was the most important change ever, is of bringing those back. Now, having 3 batteries is a challenge. It can be done. It can be won in. Now, 4 would be much better, much easier, because then you could do the panel dump. Currently, you can't always do a panel dump just because of you have to have it low enough so you can put. There's only 15 that's going to go into the batteries because there's all kinds of things you can do to drain the battery, and Lord knows.
Yeah, and there's things you can do to drain the panels, but the most effective way to get your protection back up and running is to run through a panel flip.
Right. Well, and that's one thing that we might want. Ouch. Sorry, my cat again. One thing might want to investigate in the future, which is the possibility, and there's one thing I've always been in favor of, which is instead of having, yes, cat, instead of having a larger battery, give it an energy module. Because one thing you can, because this is based off of the Conquistador. The crate is based off the Conquistador, which means it has the hangar space in it. Now, given that, the great thing, here's the thing I love about that idea, and that is with an energy module, you can, it limits the amount of that times that can be done by the Andromedan. The first time it can do a panel dump once. You can do a panel dump once. Now, after you do the panel dump, then EM can become an additional target for your opponent that's not you. Because the opponent, you can put it out there if they want to, the opponent can completely and utterly ignore you. Excuse me. Ignore the energy module. But it does so at his own peril. Because if it's allowed to sit out there and actually dissipate some of the energy from its panels into space, and the Andromeda can come and pick that up again, then you can do another panel dump. So it gives the Andromeda the ability to have another target other than the ship to destroy, which is, I think, one of those issues with the Seltorian. Now, okay, I'll go back really quick to Doug's point about the matchups not being even. Now, it's been known from the annals of time that this is truly the case. To the point where I'm not sure where at one point I think Robert Shermer had it, which was maintaining it, which is Kitty? No. Created a chart. It was called rock paper scissors, the RPS chart, which was people came up with what they felt like was the proper, if given two opponents which were equally equal opponents, basically, as well, both played as well. That give the percentage chance of that ship winning against that other ship. For example, Andromeda's versus the Fed. I think they gave that a 50-50 shot because it depends mainly on the Fed's photons.
If they don't land, they don't do it. It doesn't do the Fed any good.
Right, exactly. But if they do land, the Andromeda is completely destroyed. Because he's got front panels. Assuming he hits the front panels, if you hit with 4 of those photons, that's 64 points of damage. And then you add the phasers, you've just completely crippled that ship in one volley. Obviously.
Well, the photons alone will blow through the forward panels.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm pointing out. So if they get in the rear panels, then it's really dead. But
and then if you follow it up with the phasers, the next impulse, yeah.
Right. So the point being that it's been known that not all ships are equal. Now, there's no way to make all this one ship in the tournament to be equal against all opponents. It's impossible to do it because of the two things that are really tournament based. One, we're playing in the fishbowl. So
yeah,
it's
not just that. Human nature being what it is, the power players will always lean away from a race or an empire in which they are proficient at and into an empire in which they feel they have a favorable, sometimes even an unjust advantage.
True. But the more veteran players will want to possibly choose what they feel like is the best ship for the tournament. Now, if you're going back in the olden days, and I do mean olden days, where we had physical tournaments, the one thing that was noticed is that when it comes to the Goldhead tournament, when they did a report on who won they always would find out, okay, who won last year, and that happened with captain's logs. So what would happen? As players would then choose the ship that won the gold hat. The next year, they chose last year's winner.
It was heavily favored.
And then the veterans picked up on that, and so they started choosing the ship that was the best opponent for the ship that won. Because they figured, basically it's outguessing what's the best ship to fly that year.
It's the head game around the tournament, not just the actual simulation.
Right.
It's like, for example, there's a lot of places where part of the issue is you don't have the intelligence. You're not allowed to have the intelligence to know what's going on, unless you're in one or two instances. I think the only one that gets any kind of, I think the Orion is the only one that gets any kind of special dispensation, and they've only got 2 packages to choose from. Now, mind you, the Kazan, they can turn around and they can figure out what they want to do with their drones before each and every round. But at the same time, there's only so much they can do.
Right. Agreed.
Drones aren't that much of a surprise.
Right, and even the tweakings that you can do is not going to be big of a difference. The you know Do you want extended range drones? Are you willing to pay for it? Yeah. Most people will just use the points to get faster drones because faster drones are more lethal because the the fast drones no one can outrun by definition. The 32 speed drones you only can go 31, so sooner or later they're gonna get caught up with you. And it's not like the Speed 20 drones. The Speed 20 drones, if you're going fast enough, you actually can go around the drones.
Yeah, I know. I did it in my fight with Peter. It was what I was actually planning on doing. It was what I called the Nautilus gambit, was make big circles on the map in order to keep the drones in a quartering, if not stern chase, so that I could stay ahead of them. As a matter of fact, I ran out of scatter pack that way. But the thing is that Peter has enough experience. I mean, all praise to him. He was excellent in what he did, but he had enough experience that he was able to keep the drones in a position where I couldn't best capitalize on my plan to just make big circles in the sky until he ran out of drones. Kind of a slow speed plasma ballet at high speed.
Oh.
And it worked for a couple of turns until I got too close and he was able to capitalize on that when I was out of a position to do anything about it. I mean, granted, at the start of turn 3, the really stupid plan I had that I didn't go with was to declare a speed 4, brick up the number 6, and het on impulse 2, and then just alpha strike him with whatever was an arc, and then weasel on 3. Mm-hmm. That would have handled all of the drones plus the ones he was probably going to throw at me, but it would force me to cut tracking to the 2 drones that I had on the map. Not necessarily bad, but not great either. Mm-hmm. But I knew if I announced a low speed at the start of the turn, I was in his arc. He was in a position where he could have unloaded everything on me on impulse 1 that would bear. And I didn't know that I would be able to keep enough survivability. So I just said, look, I'm facing the right direction. Let's continue running the wall, get the heck out of here. And we'll try it again later. Mm-hmm. After having dealt with some of the drones. But it's just that kind of thing. Do I feel like I stop and I hit and I kick his teeth in and take what comes, or do I not? And that's not anything to do with how the empires are built or how the technology for that empire works. It has more to do with that judgment call between, do I have enough effectiveness to cause enough situation with shields and internals and whatnot to make it worth the return blow? And if the answer is no, then, well, maybe discretion really is the better part of valor.
Understood.
It's an interesting problem. How do we deal with the tournament? Well, the tournament's a living thing, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Each individual round is reasonably stable. I don't think I've ever heard of anybody coming in and dropping new rules or new balance on a tournament in progress, because for starters, that would be anathema to fair play. But
Jeff.
It's happened.
Yeah.
When did it happen?
Remember when I faced that 10 phaser Seltorian in the play-by-email tournament? Right there.
Yeah.
Right there. Right in the middle of the tournament. Because games last months to play out.
Oh, well, I got you. That's an edge case. I'm talking about with in-person, with live opponent, whether it's in person or through an online service. Mm-hmm. A real-time game. It'd just be like seeing who won the first round, and then all of a sudden turning around and saying that we've decided that the Fed needs nerfed, so for the rest of the tournament, at the beginning of the fight, the Fed's going to have to take a 6-point internal volley, one of which has to be a photon.
Right. Understood.
Doing something silly like that. That's a good way. That's a good way to make sure players never come back.
Oh, agreed. Agreed.
That is no.
But you know, the thing is that the tournament there's been so much skull sweat spent on how to balance these things out. But at the same time, there's been so much skull sweat of how to inject all these different empires into it. It starts to be a position of, for example, have either of you ever seen or heard of some of the Omega Quadrant empires being proposed to have a tournament ship? Or what about the Carnivons or the Parabians?
Okay.
Has anybody ever seriously tried to bring those forth for the tournament?
Well,
The thing is the bigger the SFU gets, the more people that like to play this empire or that empire that's not really represented in the tournament, the more there's going to be people wanting more and more edge cases, which just makes it harder and harder to balance.
Understood. Now, going back to the Omegas, yes. In fact, Ken Burnside created a whole set of tournament ships for the Omega Octet. Now, he did some play tests at at Origins, and I was involved in that. Now, was there any thought of actually introducing that into the main tournament? No. And and Jeff, I'm sure I've talked about this while you're on, which is that I feel like the same way I'm pretty sure Ken was going to be approaching it, which is if you had an Omega Octant tournament, it would have to be separate from the regular tournament. Just because of, in theory, now this is in theory, don't get buried in on this, because I know that overall there still needs some work to be done with the Omega empires to make them better balanced, that the weapon systems need to be tweaked some. But in any way, with the Alpha Octant being the only, because in theory the Omega Octant ships are supposed to be relatively they're supposed to face each other in combat. They don't really interact with the Alpha Octant at all, except for really far in the future, in the X ship range, second generation X ship range. So, there's no reason to have those two together. They should be definitely separated. Now, when it comes to ships being added to the tournament, there's not that many ships, and usually they're weaker ships, like the Vudar, the Jandarian. Those were no Iggy. Hey, Sal, can I fly this Orcalian's tournament cruiser? It's like no.
What's the joke behind that?
The joke is that the Zorcalians are these uber empire, basically. At least the way it's thought of, to the point where we won't. We need the second generation X ships just to match them.
Oh, I see. The I win button overpowered empire.
Exactly. So I don't.
Of course,
yes.
I saw a bunch of playtest ships somewhere on the website, and I was running down some of them, and I found one that just boggled my mind. Somebody made a tournament Bats.
Oh yeah.
That actually had warp drive.
It was
had to
April
be.
Fool's one. Yeah, I remember that. That was ages ago.
Yeah, yeah. Agreed.
I mean, I think it'd be fun to. I think it'd be fun to try, but it's just like scratching your head, going, "Hey, wait a minute. Why is there so much impulse and warp drive on something that's not supposed to move?
Yeah.
Why does it have a move cost? Why does it have a het cost? What am I missing here?" Some of the, let's put it like this: some of the artifacts that you could go digitally digging for on the ADB website raise more questions than they answer.
Understood.
But
Understood.
it can be fun.
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely. It definitely can be quite fun. Um, but okay, going back to the original question when it comes to Seltorians, and that is okay. Obviously, in this scenario, when it comes to the Winox box versus Seltorian, overall, it was outmatched. Overall, I think. I'm not, for any other ship, I'm not sure how you would fly it. That would be better. Obviously, it'd be a little. It could definitely be different if you had more drones or you had plasma versus the wind, because the wind's gonna be, because you can fly away from it while and deal with its drones while the wind's trying to deal with your plasma. You know, so you can keep him away, and the drones and the ship will part ways. That kind of thing.
Yep.
You know, the big issue obviously with the Seltorian is that, as I've mentioned, I'm not sure. I know I mentioned before on the podcast. I'm not sure if this one, but I think the biggest issue that the Seltorian has is that it has nothing, absolutely zero, as a distraction. No seeking weapon, no fighters, no nothing like that. Where the ship can escape, and the other opponent has to deal with what you're sending at it, which is separate from the ship, and give it that kind of mobile terrain kind of idea.
Yeah, the Andromedan's almost the same way, and even though the Andromedan does get one T-bomb, it doesn't really do enough. And let's face it, 10 points of damage from a single T-bomb in most tournament fights, it's only really good for taking out fighters, shuttles, and drones.
No, agreed. Also,
which can be critical.
Oh,
it can be true.
Agreed.
Particularly if you're running if you're running away from a bunch of stuff. But the thing is that the other side of the equation is the Andromeda has no weasel capability.
Well, here's the thing.
And its phaser secondary is really light. What was that?
It's really it's a very subtle play ship. I mean, it's direct fire, and you can keep up your speed if you're not using all your systems at once.
Yeah, you have to worry about.
Kind of reminds a little bit in that dilemma of the LDR, except that the LDR can do a really good overrun and has those ESGs for either point defense or for slamming the guy when you do an overrun. So,
not to mention the fact that the LDR has a very, very subtle secondary attack method. If he manages to get you to range 0 and you're not going to move for an impulse or two, he can turn around and he can do a double bay dump of 2 suicide shuttles in the same hex as you. Yeah. And it's just one of those ships that has the option that if you actually let them overrun you, you're going to receive everything you deserve, because they can hurt you badly. But the LDR, it's like, okay. Well, no, the Seltorian is really, aside from having a large array of phasers, the Seltorian doesn't have a lot of crunch power.
Right.
That's exactly what I'm saying. It's a subtlety ship. You really dance and grind down one shield basically. And if you're not able to dance and grind down one shield and hit it over and over again, then you're not going to be able to get enough damage to basically overpower your opponent or rip him of weapons through a good Mitsuya through one shield. And the other thing is...
And let's face it.
Its biggest extra bonus is the boarding thing.
Right.
Which is completely invalidated through the tournament rules.
Well, you can do hit and run raids.
Yeah,
true.
Hit and
runs are a thing, but
generally speaking, it's really a weak tournament ship. Because anybody that can do a good chunk of damage to it is going to overrun it if they can. Anybody that doesn't need to overrun it can pretty much sustain the grind that it can do while grinding it back hard.
And you know, if the Oxbox in particular was a very evil combination. You've got drones for standoff power, and you've got Hellbores to keep the constant drumbeat of you're going to die every turn, because if he gets the Hellbore in arc, you know, you can the thing is automatically gonna pelt whatever shield's been scratched.
Yep.
And it gets worse once he drops it.
Exactly.
It's just one of those things. It's like the ISC, and they've got the ultimate Mizia weapon, but at the same time, it comes with a lot of downsides in and of its own. In its use. Every empire has its foibles. Yeah, getting it into arc, keeping it in arc, and if you choose to overload it, keeping your opponent from getting into the myopic zone, all those things. It's one of the it's also one of the few weapons in the game that really actually encourage someone to offensively emergency decel. Just to keep somebody in that myopic range between 4 and 8.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking about ways of improving the Seltorian. And the one thing I was thinking of, don't. Oh, right. Where is it?
And the Man-Kazan wars continue.
Yeah, okay, there it is. Okay. Fortunately, it didn't interrupt anything. But the one thing I was thinking of, which is a possibility, and I was bemoaning the issue with power, because that's the main issue it has at the moment, is power. Because you've got your particle cannons, which require a minimum of 2 per, and the capacitors are leaky, so it's not like they're web breakers. The web breakers, you charge them for 2 and they hold for 0. They're capacitors, awesome. And I'm just wondering if I think it needs 2, at least one thing, if not 2. I'm thinking about more power, but also more maneuverability. I think if I had them, I feel like if I had the maneuverability, because we're turn mode at D. If I could get it so that the Seltorian was a turn mode of B, I think I would have done better, because I could have turned in. That's what I was thinking about. Was
I don't have access to the old SSD collection that I used to have anymore at the moment. Is there a War Cruiser version of the Seltorian?
Oh yeah, I'm sure there is.
I mean, that would probably be a pretty interesting build if you could make something that had, say, that 24 warp, but better arcs on the weapons, and even though there's maybe fewer of them, you've got a massive amount of speed to make up for it.
Okay.
To become like a little.
That's one thought, yeah.
Caddy instead of a Cadillac. Cadillac with no punch, I might add. A one-turn kill you.
Oh, just go on, rub it in.
Okay. Where's the?
It is worth rubbing it in. This is a thing that's been around for 20 years, and if it's the last possible choice of a lot of people because of the issues Paul's running into in this particular thing, then maybe an alternative version is something that somebody could come up with pretty simple, not too difficult. I mean, if there's an SSD that exists for a war cruiser version, then maybe adapt that into a tournament play style thing, where it has the capability of, firing its main weapons a lot and maintaining speed.
Mm-hmm.
Then the trade-off is the war cruiser holes that are in the tournament are kind of fragile once you get into them. So there's that. And I know that the big thing for these guys was that they were not fragile because they were going to go in and bust somebody's shield down and board, but that doesn't work in tournament play.
No, an adjustment probably needs to be made, and more power sounds good on its face, but correct me if I'm wrong. What happens with your shield crackers after your opponent has no more shields?
They are useless.
So if you beat somebody down, say they're number 1 and they're number 6, and you get them down to the point where all they're doing is bringing a box or 2 up every turn with damage control if they've got the power for it, what kind of crunch power do you still have? And the answer is, outside of range 4, not much.
True.
Because outside of range 4, phaser 1s are not really worth power offensively, unless you're afraid you're about to lose them anyhow.
Agreed.
It is an interesting idea to kick around.
Agreed. And I missed it. There's the one. Good. I think I get it this time. Just wanted to share my screen. Oh, there it is. Okay, this is the new Seltorian tournament cruiser. The Seltorian tournament battle wagon. That's it. That's the solution.
Did you just put the battleship or the dreadnought up?
I just put up the battle wagon, which is basically the hive ship that they added weapons to. Got a few web breakers, not so many particle cannons, some phasers, Let me see, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I think 11 phaser ones. Those are forward extended arcs.
That would be the kind of thing you would need to, it's like, that would be along the lines of, okay, you're the patrol round boss, and everybody on the map against you, which might actually be fun.
Yeah. Oh, agreed.
With 11 phaser ones with an FX arc plus whatever other primary and secondaries you have going along with it, you probably could make a tournament ship pop every turn you got within 5 hexes of somebody.
I like that idea. Oh, by the way, I looked and I don't see a war cruiser. That's a fast cruiser, which is, well, that is a possibility. I think it defeats the purpose. Replace the particle cannons with phaser ones. Make it a pure phaser boat.
That looks. Well, the I hate to put it quite this way, but it sounds like the whinging on the board about nerfing the Fed and giving the Fed a fast cruiser option is probably leaning somewhere near that direction too.
Yeah, well, agreed. Yeah. 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 What's the NVS? That's a new strike carrier. That does not surprise me. AC is what? Oh, air control ship. Okay. But yeah, there's no war cruiser. They got fast cruisers. They got new the new ships, which are no. I don't think there's a single one that actually is war cruiser kind of feel.
What's the NCA look like?
The NCA, actually, I just brought that up a little bit earlier. Off screen that was anyway. It's got a turn mode of D still. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 phaser ones. Oh my lord, we're going backwards. 2 webcasters and 3 particle cannons. And 32 warp, 4 impulse, and how many APRs?
What's the move cost on it? Is it move cost 1 or is
1?
Yeah, with 32 warp, that would, yeah.
So basically, it's what I currently have as the cruiser. So, anyhow, I think that would be helpful, because here's the thing. Here's the way I figured the only way that the Seltorian could have won that match. This is my thinking at the moment, which is having it so that, yes, Kitty, that the Seltorian can get behind the win. And after it gets behind the win, then all it's going to do at that point is it's going to wait it out. Have the win keep on launching the drones backwards, keep a distance. So the drones will come towards me, but I don't have to get any closer to it, to the win. And just keep on if he wants to he can fire phaser ones at me at range 8. Okay, fine. It's good.
If your whole battle plan revolves around your opponent being stupid, then
no, I'm not.
You
I'm
might
not.
have some work to do.
Yeah.
And that wasn't pejorative against you at all. But when the matchup is, let's face it, the matchup was fairly lopsided.
Yes, agreed. I agreed that he has the better overall ship. Agreed. But the key, here's the key of it is maybe not get behind him, but at the very least you gotta stay out of his front arc, which means you have to outmaneuver him.
Yep.
And
which is hard to do when you've got a deep turn mode.
Right, you have the turn mode exactly the same as him. So and the only other way then when we are the same, then the only way to get close to that position, stay in that position, is a lot of speed change maneuvering. Timing and even that is difficult because of course you don't know what his speed plot's going to be, so it gets really hairy, because that's the only way to win against him is you have to stay out of his front arc, because no matter what you do, he's going to, at some point, he's going to get close to you, get close enough to you to have it so his phaser ones get the dent that it needs to then go and fire the hellbore and just suck all the damage to that one shield.
Well, he doesn't actually, with the way the tournament shields are placed, even need to do that.
Yep. Yeah, I agree, Chris. Up to phase one, range 5 for phase ones. I think we. Jeff definitely got auto-muted or something might disconnect from a moment. But anyway, with that, actually, we need to wrap it up because it's getting a little late. Doug, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I will get you the dates when we can get together. It's definitely going to be in April because
okay.
Because I was busy this whole month and I still will be busy. Possibly like the weekend after Easter. Okay.
That's fine. Just let me know.
Will do. Okay. Well, you have a good night.
You too.
Okay. Jeff? You there?
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. Jeez. I'm sorry. Zooks has been really a pain this evening. But anyhow, so a nice little discussion there about my Seltorian game, which was bad. If I'm more than open to anyone who wants to point out, hey, this is what you should have done, please, because I see the biggest issue obviously is that he has those two hellbores in the front and there's no way to avoid them, and I have no way of no seeking weapons to speak of, so I have to get close enough so I can find my weapons. Now if he didn't have any drones, then it'd be a lot easier on me, because then I could actually use all of my phasers to fire at him instead of using my phasers to knock down his drones or just run away from his drones, which I started at the beginning of the game. Now, my guess is that when I did that was a mistake. Is just running away from the drones. And that actually, running away from the drones actually works in certain situations. Running away from seeking weapons, usually those are plasma. So I thought that might work, and obviously that did not work. So, anyway, with that, I am Paul Franz, and I bid you a good night.